One of the incredible facts of Jewish history in the modern era, and specifically the state of Israel and the return, is the amount of Jews who came back to Israel from the day of the Declaration of Independence, May 1948, until the end of 1951. In those 3.5 years, the state of Israel's 600,000 plus or so Jews more than doubled in population. 690,000 Jews moved to Israel between the middle of May and the end of 1951. Relative to population, says Professor Anita Shapiro, the largest migration of people of any nation in the modern era. And what is incredible about this migration is that the refugee problem is created for the Jews within Israel. Indeed, after these 700,000 or so people were placed in every army camp available, in every abandoned Arab village, there were still 250,000 which had to live for many months and years in transition camps, ma'abarot, which in effect were refugee camps, but within a few years, transition camps and ultimately development towns. These Jews came almost like a magnet being pulled to Israel, to the Holy Land, from over 70 countries during this time. You see, there is a direct link between the exodus from exile, from Egypt then, and from modern countries today. A direct link between the exodus and coming to the land of Israel. Indeed, in this week's parasha, we see a direct correlation and continuum from the exodus of Egypt to the entry into the land. We see the famous 5 lashonot of Geula, v'hotzeiti, v'itzalti, v'galti, v'lakachti, where Hashem says to Moshe, I'm now going to redeem the Jewish people once and forever. But there is the 5th lashon, v'heveitechem el haaretz, with the most unusual expression. God says, I will bring you back to the land. Asher nasati et ladira teitota, that I promised to Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, that I promised to them. And then he says, v'natati ota lachem morasha ani Hashem. I will give it to you as a morasha, as an inheritance. Incredibly, the only two things in the entire Torah called as a morasha, an inheritance, are the Torah, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, morasha Kilat Yaakov, and of course, Eretz Yisrael. The Torah and the land of Israel are the only two inherent, active inheritances that every Jew and Jewess has their Daled Amot, has their spiritual connection, no matter what. And incredibly, when the Jewish people came out of Egypt, the only option was bringing them directly to the land, almost pulled like a magnet. Yes, with twists and turns. It took 40 years, but ultimately that was the end result of the process which began in Egypt. And so to I say in conclusion today, it is true that in the beginning, at the advent of Zionism, when it was not clear at all, especially in the time of the Turkish Ottoman Muslims, that the Jewish people could indeed, through the Zionist endeavor, even return to Zion, to the land of Israel. There were over 30 different options of lands to go to. Uganda, Kenya was the one option. As we know, Argentina and many others were all options. And they were heavily debated within the Jewish people, and rightly so, because there was a time of pikuach nefesh. Maybe we needed to suffice with another land for the time being in order to save Jews. But somehow this morasha, this magnetic pull, deeply connecting the exodus from exile towards the return to the land, this morasha somehow metaphysically, magnetically pulled the Jewish people back to the land, resulting in the Zionist endeavor's return, the state of Israel, and the miraculous return of around 700,000 Jews, more than doubling its size incredibly in those first 3 years. The miracle continues today, and in these weeks around the Exodus from Egypt, which discuss our original redemption, in honor of the 70th year of Israel, I want to draw analogies and parallels with the incredible, remarkable times that we live in today. Shabbat Shalom.